Hey, Amir here. I thought I would record an intro to this RF Talks because it's a little bit different. This one is with Sundara, who is the spiritual director at a retreat center called Expanding Light Retreat. The Expanding Light Retreat is the retreat center in the middle of what's called Ananda Village, and they have a couple of hundred people that live there full time. They're all based on the philosophical foundation of Paramahansa Yogananda's autobiography of a yogi. They do meditation and yoga retreats and an assortment of different ones from beginner all the way into more advanced yogic philosophy. So the reason I'm recording this intro is because the format's a little bit different. We're going to start the talk with a several minute guided meditation for you. And then after the meditation, we're going to go into the talk in the interview. So I hope you enjoy it.
So let us sit up straight. Okay, put your feet flat on the floor. Put your palms on the junction of thigh and abdomen, chin parallel to the ground. Closing your eyes, lifting your gaze slightly without tension to the point between the eyebrows. This point is known as the spiritual eye or the Christ center. It's a seat of joy and concentration and higher consciousness in the body. One of Yogananda's missions was to show the underlying unity of what he called original Christianity and original yoga, and show the interpretation of those scriptures, the Bhagavad Gita and the Bible. And in the Bible it says, "If thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light." And Yogananda said that Jesus was talking about this point, midway between the eyebrows, in the center of the brain. So concentrating on that point, relaxing at that point, almost imagine you're breathing in and out of that center. Just watching your breath flowing in and out of the nostrils without controlling it in any way. Notice where you feel the breath coming in and out. Maybe it's at the opening of the nostrils. Maybe it's higher up towards that point between the eyebrows. Just watch the breath. Don't try and control it, but just simply be a silent observer. Simply watch your breath going in and out. You can enjoy the pauses between your inhalations and your exhalations. Now visualize you're standing at a mountain lake. There's a gentle breeze on your skin. That breeze creates a disturbance on the lake surface, little wavelets. And then all of a sudden, that breeze completely settles, and that mountain lake in this early morning is very calm and glass-like. And as you look into the glass-likeness of the lake, you see reflected the beautiful mountains around you and the beautiful clouds in the sky. May this image be a reminder of when we can calm ourselves and become still, we start to see clearly the reflected image of our soul. That soul that, as Yogananda said, is Sat Chit Ananda, ever existing, ever conscious, ever new bliss. Om. Peace. Amen.
Hey everybody, we're back with another RF Talks, and Amir and Lindsay here with our special guest Sundara, who is the spiritual director at Expanding Light uh, at Ananda Village in Northern California. It's a retreat center that's in between Sacramento and Lake Tahoe in the foothills of the Sierra Mountains, and in the beautiful sort of elevated. I don't know what the elevation is, but it's at the foothills of the mountains. So you have some elevation, but not so much that you're in the mountain. Ananda Village was founded around the philosophy of Yogananda and as a lineage. However, it's very accessible and open to everybody. You don't have to be a disciple or devotee of Yogananda, from what I understand. So, welcome, Sundara. Thank you very much for joining us today on this RF Talks.
Yeah. Thank you both for having me today. It's a wonderful, joyous time to be here today. And whatever I can do to help serve you all and serve any guests is what we do at Ananda.
Okay, wonderful. Well, how about we just start from the beginning?
Sure.
Tell us a little bit about the history of Ananda and the Expanding Light Retreat and the inspiration behind it and how we got to where we are today.
Sure, yeah. So Ananda is based on the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda. He wrote the book Autobiography of a Yogi.
Nobody knows what that is. Nobody's ever heard of that book.
I wonder how many people in our audience have read it.
A lot of people have read it. You know, there's a lot of people have found that whatever spiritual tradition they might have gone to, how autobiography was woven in there in some way. And that's how I started. I remember I went to a natural doctor when I was a teenager in high school, and he just looked at me and he said, "I'm going to give you a book. If you tell your parents, I'll deny it." And Autobiography of a Yogi. And
Wow.
so Ananda is based on the teachings of Autobiography of a Yogi, who helped, and Yogananda really wanted to give people practical techniques for how they could realize joy within themselves. And so a joy that's not based on just, oh, I'm joyful because I have everything I want and I'm avoiding everything I don't want, but it's something that's deeper. It's a soul joy. It's not based on the waves of likes and dislikes, or I have this or I don't have that, but it's something deep. It's something real. It's something practical. And so Ananda means joy in Sanskrit, or means bliss. And that's what we're going for. And that's the whole purpose of Ananda as a village. Ananda Village is where I live and where the Expanding Light Retreat is. It was started in 1969 by a direct disciple of Yogananda, Swami Kriyananda. And it was really based on the idea of people living together, not in a commune so much, but together, because Yogananda said that environment is stronger than one's own willpower, and that we may want to change a lot. We have the deep desire to change our lives and to become better human beings for ourselves and for the world and for our families. You know, the environment is strong, and you know there are environments that can pull us down, and there are environments that can lift us up. And so with the idea of Ananda Village, but just not just Ananda Village, but any positive uplifting influence, is that it can give us the strength that we might not have ourselves. And so Ananda is, like I said, it was started by one of Yogananda's direct disciples, Swami Kriyananda, with this idea of intentional communities. Yogananda talked a lot about world brotherhood communities or colonies where people can live together. And as I said, it's a village, so we have to pay we do have our own rent and get our own jobs. But what unites us is this common philosophy and this inspiration of Yogananda. And so out of the retreat, out of the village here is the Expanding Light Retreat, because it's not just, Ananda isn't just for those of us who live there, but it's for everyone. And it's the idea is that the poet Goethe, German poet, he said, "A joy shared is a joy doubled." And so intrinsic in the philosophy and teachings of Yogananda is not just, you know, meditation for ourselves, but it's really how do we bring in the inspiration that we feel and we share it with others. And so the Expanding Light is really about sharing the light.
Wonderful. So logistically, it is a village. There's homes there, about 200 people. How many people?
Yeah, about 250 people live here of all ages, backgrounds. Everybody is a follower of the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda. There are families that live here. There are people who are, we call them Naya Swamis or renunciants, who have gotten, and they just want to deepen their inner commitment to finding spirit or finding God. But it's really open for everyone. We have the local Nevada City Grass Valley community. We So it's not like a gated community, but everybody's welcome to come. In fact, in April, we have our annual Tulip Festival, and we have about close to 20,000 people that come to see our tulip gardens,
Yeah.
which are just extraordinary.
Looks amazing from the photos.
Yeah, it's really nice.
20,000 people, that's a lot. How do you guys manage the swell of 20,000 people?
We have a song in Ananda that says many hands make a miracle. And that's really it. Is a big part of Ananda is and it's part of Yogananda's philosophy. It's like the two sides of the same coin as meditation and service. And so we want to meditate and feel that inner joy, but it's also when we serve that we expand it. And so service is a big part of the community. For Springtime at Ananda, which is our annual Tulip Festival, it really takes a village to make it happen and the coordination of it all.
Amazing.
Yeah.
200 people live there. There's homes, and there's a proper retreat center too.
Yeah.
Retreat center has accommodations, there's group programs, there's personal retreats. Tell me a little bit about the inspiration behind the retreats and what the intentionality is behind that.
Sure. Really what's very unique about the Expanding Light Retreat is that it's part of Ananda Village. And so you're not just going to like an isolated retreat center somewhere else and then around it is the city or whatever, but you're coming into a place where many guests have said, the moment I turned onto the property of Ananda, I felt something. I felt like a vibration or a vibe. And that's because people have been meditating on this land for over 50 years. And just as certain parts of the city might have a certain vibe, certain places, I've been to many places around the world, spiritual locations and going on pilgrimage, and they have a vibe that's like you can almost feel it in the air. And I think a lot of people have said that coming to the retreat as well. So once you come, you're going to feel a deep calmness, right? Because, calmness is like a mountain lake. That when the riffles of our consciousness are more calm, we start to feel reflected the joyousness of spirit within us. And so people, they feel that calmness, they feel that joy, they feel that the kindness, because we want to, of course, whatever we feel inside, extend it to others. And so the accommodations are simple. They're not rustic. We do have cabins, but they're simple and they're very clean. They're meant to be uplifting as well. There's a quietness around the campus, but not forced. So we have our breakfast in silence, and there's a sense of quietness, but it has to be a relaxed feeling as well. And so when people come, they can feel like they can just really be themselves, but their higher self that they can kind of help to pull out.
Yeah, I liked what you said when you first started speaking with the philosophy of the Ananda communities all over the world, and the sense of being immersed in a community of folks that are practicing these teachings. And, I saw a couple of videos of, the tuning forks where you have one tuning fork and you bring it close to another one and it makes the other one vibrate. And that was like an example of how we can inspire or even like awaken certain energies within each other. And as humans, we've evolved to be empathetic and to feel into what other people are feeling. And so we can utilize that empathy within us to immerse ourselves in an environment that has this calmness to then facilitate our own healing process.
Exactly.
And you sort of like purposely dive into the pool of the Ananda vibe and sort of like through osmosis take it on.
That's exactly right. It's through osmosis. It's through being immersed in the vibration, and through that, like you're talking about the tuning forks. And something we talk a lot about here at Ananda is that idea of attunement. And then when in magnetism, and that when all the molecules in a magnet are aligned, there's an attractive quality to that. And so at Ananda and Expanding Light, we've tried to really keep it magnetized, you might say, because in who we are, not to say we're trying to say you need to be who we are, because we're not. We work with everybody where they are.
So it's not a cult. It's not a cult.
No, I don't think so.
Put that on the table.
Definitely not. Yeah, definitely not. But the culture of Ananda is very open.
Here you go.
The culture of Ananda is really open, but at the same time, it's very clear. And because we want people, a lot of the world is very confused, and there's a lot of mixed vibrations in the world, and sometimes you don't know what to believe or what to feel, because in the city, or wherever we live, there's so many mixed vibrations, and those vibrations, even if we can't see them, they affect us.
Yeah.
And so at Ananda, we try and be just real clear in our energy and our consciousness, so people can say, "Oh, that's interesting. I feel something different."
Yeah.
And it's universal because we're not sectarian. We have our path, which is the teachings of Yogananda, which is very clear. But he was really trying to show the universality of religion in spirituality. So the essence, we call our spiritual path here self-realization. So the essence of Christianity would be self-realization, or whatever path, or Hinduism, Buddhism, in the deepest sense, is self-realization, that we need to realize within ourselves, spirit within, right? And we can have an outer body of beliefs according to the uniqueness of who we are and how we see the world and our own karma. But still, we have to go within. And so that's really the emphasis here when people come, is that hopefully by having that clear vibe, there can be that sense of clarity within other self.
So this community has been around for 50 years. So that kind of explains and shows how you guys have held this space for so many different walks of life over those many years. How has the community evolved since, the 1960s to where we're at now? Because you were talking about how there's a lot of confusion in the world. And are you noticing that there are different types of people who are coming, or with different problems, or how has it evolved?
Sure, yeah. So when Ananda began in the 60s, it was the time of the communities movement in America. So there was a lot of different communities kind of starting, and not many remained or have been or still around that started at that time. There's only a couple, and Ananda is definitely thriving in that sense. And so, but when terms of, it started by, there wasn't clarity in the beginning because it was a new thing. But then Swami Kriyananda just said, okay, this is what it's about. It's about the Yogananda, and these are the principles. And as there was that clarity that he had, and that the direction of the community went, then it started to, as I was saying earlier, magnetize those people who were really looking for that. And so in that sense, there's been a thread of continuity of people coming, because we're all looking for the same thing in life, is that inner joy and that inner happiness. And it's again, we're all like unique diamonds, you might say, and that everybody has a different facet to themselves. And so, we're not like saying, oh, everybody who comes here is a hippie, or everybody who comes here is, a business person or such. It's just, we're really focusing on the immortal soul of who we are. And so in that sense, we've just really attracted people who are really sincere about their spiritual lives, real with who they are, definitely real, and authentic with who they are. But at the same time saying, I want something deeper. I want something deeper, and I want something practical. Practical techniques through not just the philosophy. So that's, I think, how things have kind of evolved, but also stayed the same at the same time.
What you guys are offering. So I guess let's talk a little bit about the programs that you guys have on offer, because you have a lot. We have a lot listed on our website, and you, as you said, so many different types of people, so many different types of walks of life come. So let's talk about some of the programs.
Yeah. So the most accessible program for people at any time is our personal retreat program, 365 days a year. It's for people who just say, I just need to go on retreat. I don't want any really big structure, but at the same time, I want to have support if I want it. And that's what our personal retreat program is. And we have people coming on personal retreat every week, every month, almost every day. And it's for those who just say, I want to get away from the city. I just want to walk. Or it can be a little bit more supported. And so you have the opportunity to meet with myself or one of our other personal retreat hosts, and we just listen and we say, how can we help you? And if you want a meditation class, or if you want to go to our gardens, or you want spiritual counseling, or you want some nature activities, you're welcome to do all of those, or you do nothing. And so it's very flexible according to where you are and what you're looking for.
So it's like checking into a spiritual resort.
Exactly.
Spiritual resort. What is spiritual counseling? Because I don't know if I've heard that term.
Yeah. Spiritual counseling would be more for, a lot of times people who come to the retreat are in a transition period in their life. Maybe they're ending a career or a relationship, or maybe they're just really starting to question what's going on within themselves spiritually. Sometimes people say, I'm starting to feel like, people talk about Kundalini. What's that? Or I'm starting to feel a lot of joy, or I have this deep desire to, go into what spirituality means, but I don't know what these things are. And so spiritual counseling is not so much about us giving you the answers, but hopefully through listening and asking questions, you can help figure out the answer within yourself. And so it goes back to that idea of self-realization, where I could tell you this, but ideally it's going to be more sustainable
that's
and
the power
deeper if it comes from
transformation, isn't
within
it?
you.
Yeah.
I mean, I can imagine people coming with a
Power.
lot of different
Yeah,
life
absolutely.
circumstances, whether it be just burnout from the big city life, whether it be some
Sure.
life transition like divorce, or maybe the kids are
Sure.
growing up and they're empty nesters or nearly empty nesters and they want to explore
Yeah.
what's next in their life. Maybe they're having a career crisis and they want to figure out what their next steps are in life. So there's a lot of different life situations that kind of warrants this
Mhm.
this sort of retreat experience. And I like that you use the word accessible, because you do have
Absolutely.
themed retreats
Mhm.
as well, which I don't know if you work with beginner, advanced, if you think in terms of advancement, but somebody can come in, test the waters for a weekend, 3 or 4 days on their own schedule, at their own pace, participate in some of the meditation classes or yoga classes that you have available,
Absolutely.
and then get acquainted with the community and the vibe, and then say, okay, I
Mhm.
want to come back for a group program, and schedule that well in advance.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, as I said, we have our personal retreat program, but we also have like different themed weekend retreats. So, for example, First Timers Retreat is a nice program for people who say, I've kind of heard about Autobiography of a Yogi. I'm ready to kind of meditate. You know, the app doesn't quite work that I was hoping it would, or, I like community. I'm interested in that. And so that's a real great, like I said, accessible program where there's not a lot of, you don't have to feel like, oh, I don't really know much about yoga or spirituality. And really, we want people to know that we meet people where they are. We're not assuming that you know more or less, that every single one of us is on our own unique journey. And we just start with where you are and see how we can support you on your next step, really. And if people want to do personal retreat, that's a great. Our weekend programs are more themed based. So, for example, we have an upcoming retreat on the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, or the Bhagavad Gita, or how to achieve glowing health and vitality. In August, I'll be doing one
Oh,
on,
is it like White
we're calling
Lotus where you
a
put
digital
your phones in
detox
your bags
retreat.
and
And
take it out?
yeah, we'll have something to that effect. And
Yeah.
then, because a lot of times it's hard for people to give things up,
Yeah.
but we're saying, okay, you can give it up, but let's think what you can replace it with that's more appealing. And so that's really the approach
Yeah.
we take. We try to pull things up rather than saying don't do these things, but pull it up, and then that more attractive
Yeah, and you
alternative
can take that
will
back to your
hopefully
life. If
replace those habits
you
we're
have the
trying to
thing that's
change.
more valuable to, I mean, it gets into like kind of logical economic thinking, but if you've got the replacement that becomes more valuable to you, then you go back to your life and you're like, oh, I remember that practice that I did. I kind of feel like I'd like to do it now. And then you just sort of
Mhm.
naturally, organically go
Yeah.
after it, and bring more of that into your life. So it seems like you've got very
Exactly.
accessible retreats, but then if
Exactly,
somebody
yeah.
is
Yeah.
studious or is going deep into the Yoga Sutras and wanting to study Autobiography of a Yogi, that's available as well for more intermediate or advanced kind of study or discipleship.
Yeah. So, here at the retreat, our programs are more like the personal retreat, which is the most accessible, you might say. And then our weekend retreats are if people want to like a little touch. If people say, okay, I'm really interested in going more deeper into the techniques and the teachings of Yogananda, then there's kind of different avenues. One would be to do our Karma Yoga program. And that's a 2-week to 3-month immersive program where you would have classes almost probably 4 days a week on the teachings of Yogananda, lessons in meditation, the art and science of Raja Yoga. And you'd also be doing service or Seva every day. You would have access to the yoga classes that are twice a day. That's for everybody has access to those. But it's more of a structured program for people who say, I want to be more immersed in this and on a deeper way, because so often people can come for a weekend retreat and you see, even after a few days, just their worry lines just fading away, because you just kind of completely removed yourself from the time away. But, oftentimes we need more. And it's like so often we're so busy and we just need to, we're like mud that's shaken in a glass jar. Even if you get here, that sediment is still kind of floating around, but after a few days it settles and there's that clarity there. And so a program like Karma Yoga allows you to have an extended time for that more clarity, because, we're all in kind of a transition between 2 points in our life, and we're a transition between where we are, and where we're trying to be. And if we think of the idea that everybody is really searching for a deep inner happiness that's not bound by what we have outwardly, then we're all on that journey, right? But so often we need to be calm and quiet enough so that we can have that clarity. And so an extended period of time is where like the Karma Yoga program was great for that clarity. And then you can go deeper into Yogananda's teachings. But it's not accessible for everyone because, you know, they have to go back to their jobs. And so that's when we can kind of twist people through our online community. So we have a virtual community online called Online with Ananda, and people can take those courses.
You brought up Seva.
Online.
Let's talk shop.
Go very deep, actually.
Why Seva? What is Seva? Why Seva?
Sure.
And I've got a Seva story that so I'll tell my story and then you can inspire us. So I used to live in the Bay Area, and I followed a romantic interest towards, she was a disciple of Amma the Hugging Saint. Sure. Who has an ashram in San Ramon, and I would go to the ashram. And long story short, I ended up visiting the ashram in India, in Kerala, and staying there for 10 days. In which case, as one does, you kind of poke around an ashram and you get you do a seva, which is essentially selfless service. And I'll let Sundara explain. And so at the time, I was in my young 20s, and I just graduated finance, and I was working as a investment banker, and I'm sitting here in this ashram in India, and I was assigned the duty of taking a pile of carrots or potatoes, I don't remember, and sort of cutting off the sort of parts of it that aren't as edible, and leaving the parts that were good in order to preserve these potatoes.
Sure.
And I just remember hating it so much. Every moment of it, I hated doing that. I'm like, in my ego was just grumbling. I'm like, I wear a suit to work. I'm an investment banker. I was like, all this identity was just cut like burning through my mind. And I was like, but I'm going to do it. And so I just sat there and I cut these potatoes for hours. And my experience was one where, I mean, I didn't achieve joy and peace in that experience, but it did make me aware of these ego flare-ups and how this could be my master and this ego could be driving me in my life. So I learned an important lesson from that. I mean, I was aware of it happening. I was conscious and kind of seeing it happen, and sort of, I just allowed it to happen and allowed myself to go through my grumblings and sort of self-centeredness. And then it just made me aware of it. And I think that's the lesson I took away from that experience. So maybe you can provide some insight into what Seva is and the benefits of it in people's lives.
Sure. Yeah, I think that story you shared is just the grumbling and stuff. That's very common, you know, like I said, we have our Seva yogis here, we call them Karma yogis, you know, and, you know, no matter what, there's times we get tired, you know, there's things that we don't want to do, you know, even when we have an ideal job. I was a nature educator for 15 years, and I worked for one of the top nature educators in the world, Joseph Cornell, who was actually a member of Ananda, and he wrote his books here. And I was traveling around the world, and I was teaching games to teach people and getting paid for it. So I played games with people
made money doing
in
that.
exotic countries. And that's a pretty cool job, right? And made money doing it. And so for me, that was like the height of my career in many ways, of what I wanted to do and be in my life. And then it got to the point where I'm like, I'm not fulfilled anymore doing it. You know, and I'm like, okay, well, I've reached the peak of what I thought was my dharma in life, or my career wise. And then it's like, I've reached the mountaintop. Right. And so, and then another time I remember I was here at Ananda, and I was just like doing a menial task, like raking leaves. And I felt so much joy in it, you know, and it was so polar opposite from what I was doing in my nature work. And then I realized, you know, it's really the consciousness in which we do things. That's Seva. And so the more we can train our minds and our hearts and our willingness to do whatever we're doing, then it's Seva. So if you're right now, Amir, you're doing this interview, if you're doing it with a sense of, I want to serve the broader community to help find a retreat, then it's Seva. So what's the difference between work and service? It's the consciousness in which we do it. And the idea, we can say it as a mental idea, but the idea is that when we can practice the presence of inner joy through meditation, that's when the meditative calm after effects can overflow into our service, into our work. Yogananda has a chant called, I will sing thy name, I will drink thy name, and get all drunk with thy name. So the idea is that through your practice of meditation and other yogic techniques, that you start to feel this inner joy happening. And then you don't just run away after you meditate, you hold on to it. And ideally you bring it into your seva and you bring it into whatever. When I say Seva, like I said, it's a consciousness. You bring it into your work, and then your work gets magically transformed into Seva. And it's not always easy, you know. You do the best you can. But in the Bhagavad Gita, it's talking about nishkam karma, action without the fruits of action. It's like in the back of your mind, you're saying, I want to be a channel for service.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't mean you're doing something spiritual necessarily
Robbing a
outwardly.
bank.
It can be, you know, you're picking up trash. You're rocking a baby. You're in the line at your favorite cafe and you see somebody who looks like they're sad and you give them a smile, you know, and you tap them on the shoulder. And it's that time. It's like every moment is an opportunity for Seva, but it's really the consciousness. And that's where I was saying earlier that Seva and meditation go hand in hand so that we can bring service into our meditation and meditation
as a human,
into our service.
Having an ego is an important part of being a human. And there's some spiritual lineages that annihilate the ego. I think some like nihilist kind of Zen traditions. Not Zen, I don't know. But then there's this balance between having a healthy ego where you can move your life forward and preserve your life, but then balancing that with this sense of selflessness that is practice doing Seva. Can you speak to that a little bit around where we can find the balance between self-preservation and self-interest versus that selflessness?
Yeah. So we all live in ego consciousness. Even Paramahansa Yogananda, who many believe was a completely liberated, self-realized master, he even had to have a ego to an extent, you might say, not in a prideful way, not in a self-centered way, but just to function in a human form from the vastness of spirit, right? So it's about how do we use our ego in the right way, in an expansive way. Because we live in a time that's, according to Yogananda's guru Swami Shri Yukteswar, we live in Dwapara Yuga, which is an age of energy. This is according to the ancient Yuga theories, the Yuga cycles in India. And that this age is very much about selfishness. And so basically individuals saying, this is what I want, and it's for me, I, me, mine. And yoga is saying, well, let's work with where we are, but expand our sense of self beyond the boundaries of our personality and our likes and dislikes. And that's where the seva comes in. So then we're saying, well, I really want to do this. I really want to take my nap, but I see that this person needs help. How do I extend myself a little bit in practical ways? So we extend our sense of self. You might say, I don't want this to be misunderstood, but we're expanding our ego until it becomes egolessness, you might say, right? And because ego isn't just being puffed up with pride or saying, look how great I am.
You're not saying to annihilate the ego, you're saying
thinking about
expand
yourself
your
too much.
perception of what self is. So the self goes beyond this form and start including others. If you have a family, the self becomes your family as well. And then you have a community and you have the whole world. Yeah. And so you can eventually keep expanding your perception and including more and more in the sense of self.
Exactly. Expand your sense of self away from the little self into the big self, you know? Yeah. And then it becomes a real joyous thing because sometimes the annihilation of the ego is like, oh man, that's kind of grim, right? But why don't we expand it, not in that expansive way where it's like, I have a big ego, but expanding our sympathies for all in deeper kindness and deeper love. Just like the retreat's name is the expanding light. We're trying to take that light of the soul that's within us and not just saying, I'm going to meditate and live in a community by myself only for me, but I want to expand it because it's in that self-expansion that we find joy. Because self-realization is the realization that we're a part of all that is. And our suffering comes when we think...
I know there's a lot of people tired of this self-driven North American world that we're living in and fighting in. And, you know, politicians are using that one way or another. They're leveraging that sense of frustration to their own ends of power. But people are looking for a break. They're looking for a break from this grind of self-preservation and self-furtherance. And this is a great place where you can go and have a break from that.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's, you know, it's really not even just Ananda and it's this, or the expanding light. It's any sort of retreat where people can get away. And, you know, that's why nature's so wonderful and everybody loves nature, you know, and if you just go to a park and, you know, there's no ego in nature. And so when people go to the forest, they feel that sense of peace. And, you know, in India, they say that all of creation is Om. is all divine. So when you go into a beautiful forest or a park, you know, you're starting to feel that divine quality, and you say, that peace that I feel is real. You start to realize it's not outside, but it's inside your own self. And then we say, how do we cultivate that more? And that's why when Yogananda came to America in 1920, his first talk was called The Science of Religion, which, what, religion, science? But if we think of religion as being like binding, means to bind back, and science being like that process, step-by-step process, well, every one of us in life is on a journey, aren't we? We're trying to get away from suffering and find more happiness and joy. And we're just experimenting along the way. But we get these glimpses, and, you know, and retreats are so wonderful because, like I was saying earlier, the sediment in our consciousness starts to settle. And then we start to get more glimpses of our soul self, and that calmness and that joy starts to be more on the surface, and say, that's what I was missing. That's what I was looking for. That's what I thought I was getting. And, you know, thinking if I had $1 million, I'd have it. And there's nothing wrong with having money, but we just don't want to be attached to it, right? But we want to use, and we can even use it in the right way, but really finding that inner joy. And that's why retreats are so important.
I love that too.
You know, the other thing about the Expanding Light is it's in a beautiful nature area. You know, there's a beautiful meadow right outside, and pine forest and lake, and you're going to find deer almost every day, and turkeys and geese. The deer are just so placid because they know we're vegetarians, so they know we're not going to eat them. Yeah, they know there's a safety there, and I've never seen any place where the deer are just so at ease.
Do you know?
You can get pretty close to them.
Do omnivores who want to come there express any anxiety around being on a vegetarian diet?
Not so much. No, you know, the food here is wonderful, and it's balanced. It's vegetarian, and but we're not strict vegetarian. Like, you know, there are some maybe different retreats that don't have garlic or eggs or coffee. We have coffee, we have garlic, we have eggs. Yeah. Because like I said, we just want to work with people where they are. Everybody who comes we'll teach meditation technique, teach you a technique called the Hong Sa technique of concentration, which Yogananda said was India's greatest contribution to the world. You know, it's just simply watching the breath, in the sense that when we watch the breath, it calms our mind, it calms our heart, our breathing slows. And like that mountain lake, once the wind is down, that's when we start to feel those calm after effects. And we really start to feel the deeper aspect of what going on retreat means. It means retreating not to a location outwardly, but to that location.
So the message is, if you haven't read Autobiography of a Yogi, that's okay. Yeah. You can still go and have an experience, immerse yourself in
you don't have to read it,
which is Ananda Village. If you have read it, if you haven't read it, go buy it, read it. You can find it everywhere, every spiritual bookstore, Amazon, everywhere. And do you guys have a store? Do you guys have
we have a beautiful boutique with most of Yogananda's books and the books of Swami Kriyananda and other Ananda authors.
If you want to pick it up at Ananda Village,
a gift store.
If you have read it and you want to practice it, put it into practice. If you're interested in the teachings, you can go and have the personal retreat. You can go to the introductory weekend. And if you're a little bit more hardcore and you're like, okay, I'm already a practitioner and I want to level up, there's programs for you as well to go deeper into the Vedic, into the Vedas and the technical aspects of yogic philosophy. It's all available to you at any level, from dipping your toe in the water to all the way a full immersion Karma Yoga program. And so it's all there. This video is going to be posted on the listing. So look above, below, left and right, wherever this video is posted, and check out the offerings. Expanding Light has several retreats per month throughout the year. So check out all of them and see which one is suitable.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you both so much. It's really nice to meet you both.